What up, world? It's your boy Mark Walter Ward, Superfacts Show, Superfacts Network. We got baby Paul BPZ, legendary producer. What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm here. I'm back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for having me once again, man. It's always a pleasure, my brother.
And it's definitely always a honor to have you. What made me reach out was I saw you recently on this MREC episode. Go check out MREC TV. I don't want to step on his toes. The episode was definitely interesting, and you talked a lot of you know just great information about Nas on AZ there, and fans of either. I suggested they go check out the episode. You go over the possibility of a new Firm album, all kinds of stuff. But the one thing I did want to say is I don't remember if MREC or any of the other gentlemen mentioned that a lot of people think that when AZ and Nas have been on songs together, that AZ has outperformed Nas. And I went back and went over that.
Started going through the catalog, huh?
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to say. And then I got kind of a moment. You might not be aware of this, but the when 1 year when Rock the Bells, when it was Nas and Damian Marley had the album.
I remember.
They were the headliners, and for some reason in DC, Damian Marley couldn't make it, and like last minute, AZ came down from New York, and they did a set together.
So I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I actually got to see them perform it, in front of like a humongous crowd. Because I don't know if you've been to a Rock the Bells, just because they're
I've been to Rock the Bells, the Governor's Island ones they had, and back to back. But wait a minute, are you telling me in DC they did a whole set together because Damien wasn't there?
Well, they closed it. They were the main. At the end of the night, there's only one stage left.
Right. Yeah. So wait. I gotta ask this thing because this is interesting to me. Did they do most of their collaborative catalog, or was it like one or two songs?
It was definitely way more. It was at least 10 because like they hit at least 3 songs off the Firm album. They definitely hit the Joan off Illmatic. They definitely hit Your Joan. They hit
They did the Essence live. Oh my god, I've never seen that. That's crazy.
Well, because remember,
I wish somebody had footage. I would love to see that.
Well, I'm sure somebody does, because remember the show was constructed for Nas and Damian Marley. I'm sure they probably had like each of their solo parts and then together and all that.
Right.
So like Nas had his set, but they didn't really so much have an AZ solo set. So I think Nas kind of like extended his set, but he probably had to go deep in the catalog. And
right.
One thing that stood out, I was surprised, and not because of AZ's talent or lyrical ability, which I've always been a strong proponent of. I have every Motown CD over there in my CD books. But how many people knew the words to the songs that were on the AZ albums and not the Nas albums? Because at this point of the night, we got the Tech Nine fans are there.
Right.
I mean, I remember
real heads.
Buckshot Shorty actually opened that day, but yeah, I saw him. But like out of this disparate crowd of all kinds of socioeconomic hip hop fans, they almost knew the AZ and Nas songs as much as they knew the Nas and AZ songs. So
that's amazing, bro. That's good to know. I never knew that they did a whole concert of catalog together. They've always, for example, when Nas performs in New York, he'll always have AZ among his list of guest appearances to do like Life's a Bitch, or maybe Affirmative Action, or maybe Phone Tap, but it never has gone past that. I've never seen it perform like the Flyers.
Oh, they definitely did More Money, More Murder. I remember that.
Yeah,
they definitely did that.
What I'm saying? That's a song they do together too sometimes. But I've never seen it perform, for example, like the Flyers or the Essence or How You Living or some of the songs that I've mentioned, previously in another conversation. But that's just amazing to even know. Thank you for sharing that. I wish I could Google search and find a live footage of some of that.
I'm pretty sure it's 2012.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up. That makes about right, because that was around the time him and Damian Marley put that project out.
But since we comparing people, and well, man, it's killing me. I don't remember man. I'm about to lose my hip hop credentials here. But
that's cool. Maybe I can help you. What song are you talking about?
The Black Thought and Big Pun songs. What is it called? Super Lyrical?
Yeah, that was the name of it.
Who had who bodied who? If anybody bodied anybody?
Well, I'm a little biased. I rock with Black Thought, shout to Philly, but Pun was a problem. Pun is just a problem. You know what I'm saying? May he rest in peace. And I had the honor of working with him one time on a song on Fat Joe's Don Cartagena album,
Gina.
but he was only on the hook. But I just felt like lyrically he was on par with practically nobody. And if he would have had to a lengthier career of being alive to have put out more work out there, people he would have proved that, you know, because he had like when he was here, he had everybody's attention when
Yeah.
he came out, everybody's attention, like meaning that he had that Biggie energy, but coming from Hispanic culture, coming from the Bronx, but like the city was like he had the city on his back when he was getting really big in the game. Any record he put out, singles or street records or otherwise, it was just like, oh man, Point is crazy with it.
Oh,
So
what I want to ask you is, you got specialized knowledge because you've worked with just so many artists over the years, rappers, and how many
yeah,
times have you come across somebody that has the breath control that he did, like the way he could just like not stop with all those syllables and big words? And
hmm
because I mean,
I'm, a,
if
I'm,
you
a,
if you if you learn the words to a big pun verse, good luck
mhm,
trying to do that shit without stop on some of them jumps without stopping and being
mm,
like,
exactly, and the only other person that fits that description that's alive is Busta, because everybody always was going crazy over that "Look at Me Now" verse on the Chris Brown record, and
yeah.
it went viral on YouTube. People trying to emulate it and say the verse themselves on YouTube, but Pun was just a special dude, man. It really was a special dude. I can give you a quick hip hop true story when Clue was working on the Professional Part Two, I believe. And I was actually in the studio downtown Manhattan with Duro, his engineer and producer from Desert Storm. And I remember Pun doing his verse for a song on that album. It wasn't the band from TV was on Nori's record, but it was a song with a couple different people on it, but it's definitely the Professional Part Two, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember, because of his health condition and his weight, he had to wait until he had his medication, right? So he called his wife Liza literally to bring his medication. He stayed in the studio, didn't leave, you know what I'm saying? And she came down from uptown, maybe it took a cab or whatever, maybe a half hour, 40 minutes tops or whatever. He brought his medication. He took his medication and he was like, all right, Clue, I'm ready. He recorded his verse in one take. You know what I'm saying? I wish I could tell you what the name of that song was, but I could say I was witness to watching him work. And that was a power and a testament to his skill and his breath control. You know what I'm saying? Despite his health condition. You know what I'm
It's
saying?
probably the Four Horsemen, right?
It might be, but it's been a while. It's been some years. So
It
I
might
don't
be the
want to.
John with cannabis.
That was it. That was it. Now you said cannabis. Yep. That was it. That was it. And I believe it was on Professional Part Two.
Damn, he did that shit in one take.
One take. I was a witness of it.
Good lord, man,
Yep.
it's amazing how
And
greatness comes in so many different ways. They say it took Easy E like 500 times of punching in to do Boys in the Hood.
well, you see in the Straight Outta Compton movie, they kind of like kind of hinted towards that, like when Dre was coaching him how to record his verse. But it was understandable because he wasn't a rapper. He was a street dude that was investing in making a change for himself and his team and his circle. And remember they said in the story that there were some New York rappers that was going to record the record and they fell out with them, kicked them out the studio. So somebody had to
Yeah, because
step
they
in.
refused to. Ice Cube still wrote the lyrics, right? And the New York dudes
hmm
refused to be talking about Lolos and bouncing 64s and
Right. They
shit.
didn't want, yeah, because they
But
didn't
I ain't
relate to
trying.
the
I wasn't
nothing.
trying to denigrate Easy E at all. Like
Oh yeah,
shit.
for sure. I mean, that record is
However it
legendary.
takes you to get the greatness, as long as if you can get the greatness, that's the only thing that matters.
Yeah, that record is legendary, and his voice stands out. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of why it became what it was, not only for that song, but for Easy E to even have a rap career. He just had a unique voice and a swag to him that people related to on a street level. So it worked. You know,
Yeah. Plus, he's
that's
one of the
probably
best
why Dre got
A&Rs in the
excited.
history of rap music, if you think about it.
Right. And that's why Dre got excited when he really got him after some coaching to get it right, because he heard what it was going to be just by the way he delivered it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, I
So
mean, and then like Dre obviously got the vision of how things can extend past music and how they'll be embraced by the culture and the whole Because I mean, he's
Exactly.
been a part of too many things that I'm not saying it's image based like it's false, but there's
Hmm.
definitely a narrative that went along with Eminem, that went along with 50 Cent, that went along with NWA, that went along with Eazy-E, that went along with Ice Cube. Dr. Dre's
I
been,
totally
been been
agree.
great at
I
that.
totally agree. And I pride myself, thankfully, coming from my perspective, being of the East Coast region from the 90s, to have an ear and insight on new talent and knowing how to cultivate that and curate that to be the next voices of the culture, and that's kind of what I continue to strive for to this day, where everything I put my hands on, what I mean? It's not just about the song, it's about the vision and the vibe and the energy you put out there behind the talent that you invest in creatively. You know what I'm saying?
So like, without I ain't trying to set you up to sound conceited or anything, but like you still make songs that with legends, with new artists. Um, the, they sound fresh. They're
Mhm,
successful. You're
mhm,
still involved as a performer
mhm.
with your group Crossroads.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Shout out to Super MC, man.
Oh
For
yeah,
sure.
definitely.
Detroit.
Shout out to Super.
Hmm.
One of my most memorable episodes ever. Go check that out. But
Yeah, man.
but the question I was gonna ask you is, and I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but a lot of people from your generation, and I'm not talking no drugs, prison, none of that type shit,
Hmm.
but they
Hmm.
just haven't been able to remain relevant or part of the culture. And some of
Hmm.
it is your ability because the shit
Hmm.
go hard as a motherfucker. I mean,
Right.
you do slap, but
Right. Right.
outside of that, what do you attribute like just still being here and not being dated?
Right. I think for me, it's my love of the music and my love of and respect for the culture, and always finding ways to be inspired to contribute to it. I never feel like I'm finished, with my work, meaning that, I'm open-minded. I listen to everything, whether I have a criticism of it or not. I listen to everything, and I take what I can from it. You know what I mean? I learn from things in different ways, whether it's like, Southern hip hop, West Coast hip hop, Midwest hip hop, new producers, younger generation producers, and how they approach making music. But some of them, they don't know the architects like I would. You know what I'm saying? They just go by, they take the approach by what is provided in front of them, whether it's the current technology of software to make beats or whatever they're hearing on the radio on the internet, and that's where they draw their inspiration to create what they create. Me, I come from the school of hard knocks. You know what I'm saying? I grew up on, 80s hip hop, 90s hip hop until I made a name for myself and so on. So, I always respect the architects. I look at the cultural aspect of the music, not just the technical aspect of beat making, not just uh the marketability of certain records on certain levels. I take all that information in, and then I curate it in a way that suits my vision, if that makes sense. Know how to take something that's coming from the younger generational perspective and make it me. You know what I'm saying? And still, connect the dots with the people who are familiar with my work from the past and allow them to follow my journey. And then if you don't know my past, you can connect to my journey now. Like, okay, I like what you're doing now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's how I've kind of bridged the gap, if so to speak. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, but bro,
me,
one of them youngins your publicist got on the show, and I forgot who it was because I've done so many through it. I mean, shout
hmm,
out, but
Maisha, yeah.
yeah, shout out Maisha, and
Mhm.
I don't know if everybody want their name to be said, but
Oh no, she's good. She's good. Asante
I,
works
I
me
I
up.
I
Maisha
always
Hedges,
err on the
she's the
side of
truth.
caution, brother. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. She's
But
she's cool with
but
that.
Youngin had you he named you as a producer on his project, and then I
Hmm.
was like, oh, from the legendary Beat Miners, and he ain't
Hmm.
even know nothing about that.
Exactly. I rest my case. Well, who was the artist? Who was the artist?
Man, man,
Was it Los?
I think it was. Yep, Los Key. Yep. My man with the
Los.
t-shirts
Hmm.
and the high top
Hmm.
fade with curly jump.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep, it was probably Los. Yep. Shout out to Los, man. Yeah, because I mean, like you said, some of the younger generation that I work with, I don't always share my story in depth to say, do you know who you're working with? Do you know who I am? Do you know what I've done? I
And
don't do
thank
that.
God,
I
bro.
just
It's too many hip hop events where it's like, are y'all having conversations, or is this just like resume trading? It's like going to like a virtual LinkedIn or some shit.
right. So for me to even get in depth about my career history, it would require me being in a situation where we're having musical conversations, or I'm in the studio for some period of time and rehashing some things I've been through, or someone bringing up one of my old records or artists I've worked with in the past, and then the subject pops up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did something with him X amount of years ago, or whatever, you know.
Well,
Or
one
the
thing I
rest of
know.
it is them just discovering it on their own, you know.
Yeah, true indeed.
Hmm.
One thing I noticed we had in common, and I wonder what happens to people. I call it like old brain, and they just decide that like after a certain point, and this don't gotta be about music, it could be movies,
Hmm.
TVs, books, sports,
Hmm.
whatever. But like
Right.
after a certain time, there's nothing possibly good that can happen after that certain period that they decide to cut that shit off at. And,
Right.
and like I still think motherfuckers can make good music, call me crazy and shit. But like,
Me
I'm
too.
about to be 40, 44, and
Hmm.
mad
You still
motherfuckers.
young, bro.
Oh
You
yeah,
still
I
young,
don't feel
man.
old in the slightest, but like
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
motherfuckers I went to school with, they got that old brain shit. They're like, I ain't like nothing since like Dipset or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And I'm like,
Right.
how is
Right.
that possible? Like, no matter what type of shit you like, I guarantee you, if you had an open mind, there's some
Hmm.
new dope shit.
Exactly. Exactly. And I understand what it is. And, I find the art in everything when I listen to music, meaning that, it could be Little Baby, it could be, you know, what's that kid that's out right now? Um, he did a record with Drake, Little Dirk. He was on that song, with him and Drake in the video, and he out on the water, and he
Shit,
got the
Lil Durk been around
basketball.
more than 10 years, brother.
Yeah, exactly. So, I find the art in everything artists do, to connect. And then I meet a lot of artists who have that kind of talent level that just haven't been exposed yet.
Right.
So for me, I find the medium to be like, let me see where I can fit in the scope of this, and then use my tenure in this game to introduce new talent. You know what I mean? So, but then like I said, I take a creative approach where I try to bridge the gap. For example, I'm working with Monie Love, who's a legendary female rapper, legacy artist. But then I'm also working with Jay Slade. You know what I'm saying? I did some stuff for her mixtape project and new music that she'll be coming out with next year. And like, she's completely young generation, but I knew how to put it together in a way to make it sound authentic. And that's important.
Right.
So
That Monie Love record, I mean that shit's fire, and
thank you.
from what I can tell, the reception seems to be good. But you're
Yeah.
probably a little more prey to the aware of the metrics and everything.
Yeah, it's actually doing very well. And we got the video we shot in Atlanta that'll be dropping before January. Shout out to Sky Zoo, and that's the first time I ever worked with Sky Zoo. And mind you, Sky Zoo comes from the lineage of Duck Down Records.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like if I'm not mistaken, his first music releases were with Duck Down. Am I right?
You got me on that one.
Yeah, I believe so. So, well,
They be
again, he was
surprising
next.
me, bro. I be finding out like Young Ma, like they be involved in so much shit and you don't even
Right,
know it.
right. But
Especially now that we don't get physical shit, so you're not sitting there looking at the CD with the logos and all that.
right. It's mostly digital, viral,
Because I'm
YouTube,
hip to
streaming.
Skyzoo, bro, but I don't know if I've ever actually copped like a Skyzoo CD. Like these
Right,
days, I
right.
only cop shit if somebody puts out a vinyl.
Right. But when I first heard of Sky Zoo, I heard of him through Duck Down's releases. But at that
Gotcha.
point, I wasn't producing music for the label, but I had heard of him and I heard some of his work. And him and Moni are real cool, and they both currently reside in Atlanta, so they kind of connected the dots. And then when she started wanting to record new music, and I provided ideas, she just asked him to jump on the record, and it was a no brainer. You know what I mean? And what I love about this record is it's a vibe.
Yeah.
It's a mood record. It's a listening record, and you can really get into a zone and tap into the lyrics and the conversation, because the lyrics for each verse, it's about the matriarch of the family. Honoring the person in your family when you were younger. That was like the big figure, not necessarily the mother or father per se. It could be the grandmother, it could be the aunt, but just that matriarch of the family. And in each verse, each person in the song is honoring the matriarch of their family. You know what I'm saying? And the first verse happens to be an artist out of Philly named Tough that
Shout out Tough.
happens to be the father of Monie's youngest child. You know what I mean? They actually just did the latest season of Marriage Boot Camp, you know what I mean, together. And she was always trying to support his music career. So I guess in the scope of us doing his new music, she was like, let him jump on it. So he's the first verse. Then she's the bridge between the first and the third verse. And the third verse is Sky Zoo. And there's no hook. If you peep it, there's no hook.
Right.
They just take turns. It's like a conversation record. They just take turns, and each verse transitions from one to the next. So you don't even realize it. There's no hook.
No, I caught it. I caught it. But yeah. I can see because it does keep you kind of like in the narrative. But you seen Money B from Digital Underground lately?
Nah, I haven't seen him. But he's a
well,
legend.
Look. He looked like he ain't aged a day, right? And Monie Love looked like she ain't aged a day. So it must be something about that name. Like if you young and you don't want to get old, put money in your name.
Start with the Mo, right? Facts. Matter of fact, I did see a video. It was like I don't know if it's an interview segment. And rest in peace to Shock G. Since he passed away, he might have been speaking on his relationship with Shock and the Digital Underground history. And you're right. He looked the same. You're right. Yeah. You're right. I never met him in person. So when you asked it at first, I thought you was referencing me literally seeing him. But
nah. I was just like, when I saw Monie, like when you told me you was working with her, and I followed her on Instagram, and saw the artwork and stuff come out. I was like, damn, she looked. I mean, MC Light too. Like, man, it's a lot of people in hip hop that's clearly took care of themselves.
Yeah, facts.
Which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, man.
I ain't gonna hold you up too much, but there was a couple on our first episode we didn't get to touch on it. People you work with and like some questions I had or things I'm interested in. This might not be here nor there, but on your Discogs page, you're listed as not only producing on High School High, but as being a technical advisor. And I'm just curious, did you have some role in High School High past?
Yeah, shout out to Big Beat Records, my dude Rob Tulo, who was an A&R at the time. I built a relationship with Rob Tulo when I was producing for Artifacts, when I produced The Ultimate and a few other records for that first Artifacts album. And in the scope of that, when that soundtrack opportunity came about, we bounced around and they was talking about, placing some records on the soundtrack and in the movie, because Big Beat Records, which was a subsidiary indie label through Atlantic Records at that time, which is the same label that put out Artifacts, they was like, yo, let's put some songs on there. So that's how they chose The Ultimate, because that was the lead single from the Artifacts album, but also a record they wanted to license and put in the film and on the soundtrack. So it was a good look. I still get publishing to this day for that record. Because, when you play songs in movies, not just on the soundtrack, you get performance royalty, residual income from that. You know what I mean? So it was a good look. The other example of that experience for me was the Next Friday soundtrack, shout out to Ice Cube, that was on Priority Records. I did a record for Pharoah Monch for his album Internal Affairs for Raucous, that they had decided not to put on the album because they liked the record, but it didn't fit the creative
let me test
direction.
my memory. Was that Stepping Up?
Liven It Up, close. It was called Liven It Up. And it didn't fit the creative direction of the whole album, but they didn't want to waste the record. So at the time, Brian Bratter and Jared Meyer, that were the owners and operators of Raucous, they decided to license it to the film with Priority for Next Friday. And they actually also put that song in the movie. So it wasn't just on the soundtrack, it was in the movie. And every time that movie gets played, I still get publishing money off that. I own 50% of the publishing on that record.
Man, God bless streaming services. They done made life better for us all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And shout to Raucous for not putting my song on that album. Because, Internal Affairs did what it did. But, I think monetarily being on that soundtrack was a better look for both me and Monch.
Well, shit, sometimes, things work out the way they're meant to be, right?
Exactly.
Another jump when you was on the MREC episode, you was talking about, like, again, I ain't gonna step on no toes. Y'all make sure y'all go check out on MREC TV. But you was talking about a lot of the samples you used on songs. So I was curious, maybe not underrated, but let's say maybe not a little unknown to what we would assume my audience would probably be. some examples I came up with. I was looking at shit I listen to a lot, like for my wrap up. I listen to Paloma Faith, Valerie June, Desmond Decker. I mean, everybody's hit the Glass Night and the Pips, but I don't know if Youngins is like that. So it's always good to
Last Night Pips has one drum break that is infamous. It sometimes gets confused with the song Funky Worm, you know what I'm saying, by the Olympics, but it has a drum break that'll remind you of you know, the Looking at the Front Door record by Main Source, the drum beat.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's got the same drum beat, you know what I'm saying? But it's just sonically not as heavy, you know what I mean, between that. But
so
classic
who are
shit.
some people you would recommend, you know, the because I my demographics say my listeners are probably you know, hip hop fans between the ages of 13 and 26.
I would say if you're a collector, I still
These
like going
motherfuckers
back.
are streaming, bro. Like they gonna look this shit up
Yeah.
on Spotify. You know
So
what I'm
can I
saying?
tell you something?
Yeah,
They could do
definitely.
that, or they can go to YouTube and pull like music from YouTube. I kind of do that, you know what I'm saying? But um I like collecting like classic soul, fusion soul, R&B from like Ohio Players.
Yeah, hell
You
yeah.
know, I still like to go through my James Brown, but early James Brown, you know what I'm saying? You know, the stuff on the People label, you know, like the JB stuff, some of the
The
records that
Fabulous Flames.
stuff he produced for like Lynn Collins, shout out to Bobby Bird. All of those are classics that when you listen to some of those records, you get some of that sound that Marley was doing for like Juice Crew and Big Daddy Kane and Shantae and Biz, rest in peace, Biz, you know what I'm saying? A lot of dope blues records, you know what I'm saying? But there's some real rare alternative blues records that came out on independent labels overseas that on like ABC Records, like Outlaw Blues Band. That was a record that they used for that for the a Cypress Hill song. Just look up Outlaw Blues Band and you'll see what I'm talking about. You know, I can't remember the name of the Cypress Hill song, but there's a classic record by Cypress Hill. They use Outlaw Blues Band.
So I'll
It was
definitely
on
check that
ABC
out.
record. Yeah, for sure. In my catalog, I had a little bit of like I had a jazz phase. I was going through like Roy Ayers catalog, like for example, stuff I did on Smith and Wesson's first album. I sampled like Roy Ayers, Donald Byrd, um, uh, the group that actually the LaFleur LaFly record came from is a group called the Catalysts. You know what I'm saying? The song's called Uzuri, spelled Uzuri. It's a jazz song by the group called the Catalyst. That's how I made the LaFleur record.
See, man, I rock with jazz like that, but it can only be background music.
Well, it depends. You got to get like mid to late 70s jazz into early 80s jazz. So that's the fusion jazz where a lot of musicians from that genre, they were trying to make quote unquote more mainstream records to survive. So it wasn't traditional jazz where it was acoustic bass all the time. And, you know, it had like live bass and drums and chord progressions and like instrumentation that, you know, could be like a classic R&B record. Shout out to Peace Russian, one of my favorite female producers. She has some of the most legendary albums from her time as an artist signed to Electro Atlantic. And to this day, people sample her music and make classics from her music. You know what I'm saying? From You Remind Me to Forget Me Nots, and the list goes on. So.
Got you. I just want to finish up with a couple questions about people you work with. Is there any updates on any new music from Amil?
Oh, absolutely. Amil actually has an unreleased whole project. You know, I kind of co-executive produced a project with her. It had production for me, Kwame, Easy Mobi. Yeah, yeah. And it was kind of shelved. We were supposed to do it with Baby Grand Records, but you know, there were some legalities as to why we didn't put it out because they didn't match the budget that we were contractually agreed to. So we shelved it because we didn't want to just put it out with no proper marketing and and then it just stays under the radar. But she has a body of work in the catalog that's just
Do you
waiting
know
to
who
come
Chris
out.
Schwartz is?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Rough House, right?
Well, it's Rough Nation now, but
Mm-hmm.
they're putting out vinyl.
Okay, that's what's up. That's what's up. Shout out to Chris Schwartz. And then I've been collaborating with Rob Schwartz over at Who Mag. You know what I mean? He's the one who, in partnership with Sony, is distributing Monie's project. You know what I mean? So just in a slight reference to her, uh, we're developing enough work with production for me, Apollo Brown from Detroit. I believe Kwame might be doing something, actually, speaking to him again. Um, and I'm gonna be bringing in a few other my producer friends to like add some other stuff to the pot. But you know, it's all tentative. So for now, the majority of work is just me and Apollo Brown. I did already like 4 records. The next single is gonna come out early next year. That's produced by me, and then she has like 2 records with Apollo Brown, and we got some pending collaborations from like Vivian Green, maybe A. Marie. Of course, you see Sky Zoo's on the record already. You know, so we try to put together and make it, you know, as quality as possible, you know, so it's not only
And
for the
I want to hear
culture,
that
but
Vivian Green jump.
yeah, I'm a huge
Me
Vivian
too.
Green fan. You know, it's weird because I've never met her, but we spoke on the phone once. She called my studio when I had my studio in Midtown Manhattan next to the Garden. She was calling for one of my producer friends, named Anthony Bell, who produced for Jill Scott. He produced Golden for Jill Scott, and he was at my studio. So she called for him because, you know, he's worked with her in the past. So she was like, "Hey, is Anthony there? This is Vivian." And I'm like in my head like, "Oh my God, is this Vivian Green? I love you." Nah, you know what I'm saying? So,
I bet you don't be
but it's
like. I bet you don't be doing that too often.
nah. I usually don't. In my mind, I do, but when I
Right.
meet people in this industry that I'm a fan of, you know, I just keep it to myself because I like to feel people's energy before I really have conversations and put what I'm thinking out there like that.
Hey, you
You
know
know
what
what
I
I mean?
always ask
But
people?
I'm a fan of hers though. I mean, it's out there now in this interview.
Right. When you
Yeah.
first started meeting your people in hip hop, we won't even say your heroes, but just people that
Mhm.
you listen to their music. Were you surprised at how short they were?
Well, I've never I've never noticed someone height wise, but you know, I look at personalities. Like the first time I ever met DMC or the legendary Run DMC was at my studio. The same studio I mentioned
I ain't
before that
hip
I
to how
had in.
tall he is or
Yeah,
was.
he's super tall, man. But the best part, he was super down to earth and real cool and humble. And he don't even realize, man, you know, I had Run DMC posters on my wall at 16 years old, and they from the same part of Queens, you know, like right across town from where I grew up. So for
He
me,
probably had
and I,
some suspicion, you know,
you
like
know, for
you
me, it
probably
was
couldn't throw a rock in Queens without somebody had to have a Run DMC poster
right.
in the bedroom.
But for me, it's a big deal because it's like, you
Oh yeah,
know, I got an opportunity to make a name for myself, and then I get to meet my peers years later. You know what I'm
and
saying?
they
And
respect you, your work.
yeah, you know, I met Jam Master Jay, may he rest in peace, just at my local barbershop. You know, he was on the phone waiting online to get a haircut, and I just said, "What's up?" And I said, "It's an honor to meet you." And you know, it was real cool. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I would have had no idea that unfortunately he would have passed away right in that same neighborhood that, you know, we first, you know, crossed paths. You know, unfortunately, but you know, he's definitely one of my heroes, man.
What was working with Guru like?
Oh man, Guru is super cool, man. Rest in peace, Guru. It's funny because we were under the same management at one point, Empire Management, which was Patrick Moxie. He was managing Gangstar. Uh, uh, he was managing, of course, Little Dap, you know, Group Home, J. Rue the
Okay.
Damager, MOP, and on the production side, he was managing DJ Premier and myself. And you know, I remember one time Guru, I think his youngest child was when his youngest child was born. Him and his lady was having a baby shower, and they gave me an invite. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, I didn't make it. I can't even remember why I didn't make it. I think I was going out of town or something like that, and I was just the dates didn't it was conflicted. But I was like, "Yo, thank you so much for the invite, man. I appreciate it." You know, I didn't know he would be going too. You know what I'm saying? It's like when I look back, all of my peers that I came up with, some of them are no longer here. I feel blessed. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean, bro. Like, you know, being from the DC area, you know, a lot of people I went to school with died from COVID at the beginning of the
Yeah,
pandemic, and then
yeah,
even before that,
yeah. You know,
I'm from PG County, so you know, I'm no stranger to people dying young and all that type shit. So I know exactly
yeah.
what you mean.
It's crazy because I listen to Gangstar on the regular in my car, like they're on my playlist religiously, you know, just randomly, you know what I mean? And I just remember times I spent with both, you know, Guru and Premier, whether it's in the studio or in the office, you know, just kicking it type stuff. And it's weird because a few years ago I was driving on the FDR drive and I was playing Moment of Truth on the the Moment of Truth album, with the title cut. And I literally got in a car accident with that song blasting. You know what I'm saying? Thankfully, I didn't get hurt, but it was just crazy that I was listening to the song Moment of Truth and then I get into a car accident. You know what I'm saying? It was like a Uber driver bounced off of somebody else and bumped into me and, you know, damaged my car. But, you know, and there was nobody behind me, thankfully. Otherwise, it could have been worse. But you know, I just never forget that moment. I happened to be listening to that song and I get in a car accident, you know.
You know, I could be wrong about this, but I think Gangstar might have been the first New York group to work with a Southern rapper. Their song was Scarface.
Right. You're right. You're right.
I mean, it could be something I'm unaware of, but
yeah. Yeah. Because what year was that album?
I don't know. I know about from the design of the decade.
I mean,
you know, the fat gray down.
Because Big worked with Both Us in Harmony before he passed, but they're from the Midwest.
They from the Midwest, yeah.
And then Jay worked with UGK.
It was definitely before Big Pimpin'.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then he worked with Too Short, who's also from the West Coast. So you're probably right. I can't think of any New York artists that worked with someone from down south.
Because I think it was either like 90 or 92. Unless somebody made a song with Luke, I ain't hip to, like one of those like those big like self-destruction songs or some shit.
You're right. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone. And it was actually that same album, Moment of Truth. I actually got a gold record thanks to the fact that we were under the same management because I didn't produce anything. You know, that's all primo. You know. But they gave me a gold record just to say, yo, you know, we celebrating this gold record together. It was Gangstar's first gold record ever because the single Royalty featuring Casey and JoJo did so well. You know what I mean? That was like the single that carried the weight of the album in terms of record sales.
What, Dwick didn't go gold?
Dwick is a single, it might have went gold, but I think as an album, Moment of Truth was their first gold record.
Got you.
Despite all the work they put in all those years before that, that was the first certified gold record. And that was before Guru passed. So, you know.
Well, and
very well deserved. It was a great album.
Oh yeah, for sure, no doubt. I definitely I had that on cassette. And speaking of that era, in keeping with the same vein, what was working with Naughty by Nature like? That energy must have been fucking intense.
Yeah, shout out to KG, man, because I used to. Me and Mr. Ward from the B Minds, we used to go catch up with KG in Jersey, and he was working with this group Next. Remember the R&B group Next?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so my boy Walt, he did a collaboration with KG on the production for a song on Next's album. It wasn't a single, but he did a song with them that made that first album. So I got really cool with KG and his songwriters and his co-producers and. You know, I didn't even meet Tretch originally back then. I met Tretch way later. Like by the time we did the Beat Miners album for Raucous, and we were just pondering all the features and collaborators, we made like a wish list of people we want to work with and just kind of narrowed it down to what made sense in terms of their availability, clearances with their labels, because you have to clear artists to even be on your record if they're on a different label. Then the other side of it is your budget to pay for it. You know what I mean? To pay for the features and stuff. So you know, we actually just went to Jersey and put that record together, and Tretch came up with the hook, and Tretch and Vinny did verses. You know, usually you hear Tretch do all the vocals, but that song in particular, Tretch did a verse and Vinny did a verse. So it was pretty cool to see that dynamic because it's not often heard. You know, like they have a few hit records that they did together like that. And then there were some records that was just mostly Tretch.
Got you. Did you ever meet Big L?
Yeah, I met Big L before he passed. It was like probably D&D Studios days, you know, because like, you know, B Miners was in the A room producing like, you know, all the, you know, boot camp stuff. Premier was in the B room doing a lot of Gangstar, J. Rule, Group Home, you know what I'm saying? And even AZ Monie was doing a lot of Lost Boys records there, you know what I'm saying? And before L passed, I know he was in talks to sign a Rockefeller Records. Yeah. So, you know, Jay was up in there, Nas was up in there at different points in time, working with Primo, making those classics that y'all know. And I know he had came up in there a few times. And he did a record with, Premier did a few records with L, and I think Diamond D and Buck Wild were doing a few records with L, you know what I mean? And he was on Columbia at the time, I think the last body of work he put out before he passed. So.
Well,
This is
yeah,
crazy because
the
people still talk
lifestyles
about
of the
L.
Porn Dangerous. Yeah, that was a
Yeah,
Southern Columbia jump. You know, that was the
yeah,
first album Cameron was on. They spelled his name differently on it on a Eight Is Enough
right,
song.
right. It's
I
crazy
just
because
always thought Big L would have sound good with the beat miners, and I was surprised that it never happened.
I think it would have happened had he been still alive, honestly, because it was a small circle of us that was in and out of D&D studios during that era, and all the artists that was coming up or winning in the game at the time, they just knew where to go if they came there to work with any of us, meaning me, Walt E, Premier, that circle. You know what I'm saying? It was always us consistently in that studio for like a couple years actually. So if L wanted to work with any one of us, all you had to do is go to that studio and find us in any given day, and he would have got whatever he needed musically.
At what point did you realize that Duck Down was gonna be, what it ended up becoming? How
Well,
big it was? Because I mean, you
the
like
interesting thing
commercially,
is
you were
people.
there at the height of its like intensified, multiple albums in a 4 or 5 year.
Honestly, I credit myself, Evil D, and Mr. Walt for Duck Down Records' existence to this day. The catalog that we offered that label is what keeps them alive to this day. Not just the credibility and the respect, but the value of the catalog we did, and that's not to knock the younger generation, but is anybody talking about those records? I don't think so. They go back to the first, Black Moon album, the first Smith Wesson album, the first Skelter album. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like for those who didn't know, it wasn't until the Priority Records situation that they became a label. Before that, they were just a management company for the groups, and they were signed to Nervous Rec Records, which is owned by Michael Weiss. Michael Weiss and Barry Weiss are both brothers, and they both owned Nervous Records and Jive Records at that time. So they had a big hold on urban music in the market at that time. And this is before Barry White started investing in, pop music artists like Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, and the list goes on. You know what I'm saying? So they have very much the same business model. That's why you'll hear war stories to this day from like some of the earlier artists that were signed to
Yeah.
Jive Records, like Tribe Called Quest, KRS One. They had war stories for their
Hey,
record
bro,
deal
I
contracts.
interviewed Spice One, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
it was either I interviewed Bun B and Spice One said this, or I interviewed Spice One and Bun B said this. So I could be getting this wrong, but it was these two principles. And I asked them about the first time that they met each other, and they met at Jive, and one of them had already been signed, and one of them was about to sign. And the first thing, their first interaction, whichever one was signed told the one that wasn't signed, "Don't do it."
Right,
But
right. It's true.
unfortunately, he did it.
It's true. I think the only ones who survived that time were the dudes out west who were independent, like Too Short and E40. They came in with a different
UGK did.
understanding. Yeah, they came in with a different understanding of the music business to keep control, and they did. So everything they did that was successful, they really made their money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, a lot of people got horror stories about that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And then what was Fatal? What was Fatal Hussein like? I really like that song.
Man,
I
thank you.
can't find it no more, man. I used to have a copy, and I didn't realize this was you. You had this album that was like 10 years.
I'll do you a favor. Oh, you talking about the Underground Veteran that I put out with Fat Beats? Yeah,
and
yeah.
There's no good download links on mine no more.
Yeah, you can't find a digital version of that. Long story short, Fatal Hussein was signed to Relativity Records back then, the same label as Fat Joe's early career, same label as Beat Nuts.
Yeah, he had a CD that came out in the store. It was good.
Yeah, In a Line of Fire was a dope album.
And Mike Geronimo was always dope when they worked together.
Right. The manager for Fatal Hussein at that time was the same manager for the Outlaws. So it was kind of one of those things where I was doing music for for Artifacts, and the manager, he was just like, "Yo, I got this other artist that I'm working with. I want you to do some music for him."
Oh, that's all that New Jersey shit.
Yeah, because Fatal, a lot of people don't know, even though he's affiliated with Tupac and the Outlaws, he's from Jersey. So I didn't know who he was, He was just another artist on a come up on a label to me. You know what I mean? I discovered that after the fact. You know what I mean? And we did some records that came out really dope. But I had a clearance issue at the time as I sampled the Isaac Hayes record that they didn't want to spend the money on. Fire. The record was fire. I actually got the inspiration to make the beat from listening to the SWV song Can We that Timbaland produced.
Gotcha.
Like the drums on that track gave me the idea of how to program the drums to the Isaac Hayes sample. So when I put it together, you the average ear won't catch it. You have to pay attention, but that's where I got the idea. I was listening to Can We, and then I made the beat that I made that ended up on the Fate of Hussein. But because of the sample clearance, I had to play the record over. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't want to play the master. So the version that ended up on the album was a replay of what I originally did. It came out good, but I feel like the original version that just had more soul to it. I just felt it better. You know what I'm saying?
Was the one on that because when I had that the I'm sorry I don't remember the name of it, but I had like a mixtape version of your CD.
You talking about the In the Line of Fire?
Nah, the one that was a
Oh,
10-year jump.
oh, yeah. It was called Underground Veteran. 10 years
Underground
in the
Veteran.
making.
What was that? Was that the sample clearance one?
Yep, that was the original version.
Okay, yeah,
That's the
that man,
original
that shit
version.
was hard as fuck.
Thank you. It was featuring Mac Moore. I believe Mac Moore's from the West Coast, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. hmm
I think from
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Bay, pretty sure.
Yeah, for the Bay Area. Yep, sure is. You know what I'm saying? Because I know he was somewhat affiliated or has collaborated with E40. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how I heard of his name. But man,
Now you
it's
might want to
crazy.
check. You ain't checked out too much Mac Dre in your time, have you?
Nah, I mean I'm familiar with them, but I may not know their music. Like you know what I'm
Well,
saying?
no,
But
that's just one person. He died, but he went to prison for bank robbery. He's an interesting
oh
person
wow,
of
wow.
himself.
Yeah,
Like
because I heard the name. I just not familiar with the music.
yeah, they
Yeah.
should make a biopic of him. He might have got killed in a bang out with the police. I ain't sure, but I know he met a
Mm.
violent end, unfortunately. But
That's
you
crazy.
you talking about original music. They got that whole sound from him, from Mac Dre.
Mm.
So
Mm.
you might want to check that shit
That's
out
good to
since
know. I might do a little research on that. That's what's
yeah,
up.
since you like all that good original music.
Yeah.
Another thing, I think that Kanye West, I'm not gonna say he stole, but I think he was greatly inspired for my dark twisted fantasy from this unreleased Pimp C album called Sweet James Jones Harris County Jail Stories.
Mm.
So you might find that interesting. Matter of fact, I could probably
Where would
send
I
you.
find that? Yeah, I want to hear
I could
that.
probably
Send it
send
to
you a
me.
version of that one, but
I want to hear it. It's weird because when you mentioned Ye, earlier in his career, we talking like 2004 when before his first album came out, and he was doing production for Rockefeller, and he was doing like a series of mixtapes. And I met him through Consequence, who's my OG homie out of Queens, and we had a conversation about a song that we ended up releasing on ABB Records, an independent label out of the West Coast. There's a song I did for Consequence called Turn Yourself In, and Kanye's on the hook. You know what I mean? And then, we had a conversation as he was starting a good music label and John Legend got signed. So Consequence was like, yo, I'm going to do a remix. I want to do a remix of it. And he had me do it. And we turned it in, came out fire. And, I ran into Kanye at a party one night downtown Manhattan. So I'm saying to him, did you hear the remix? What do you think? And, he just nodded his head like, yeah, that shit hard. You know what I'm saying? And then I was like, okay, great. I'm looking forward to like probably doing more work with y'all in the future. I'm referring to him and his label, Good Music, because I know Consequence was signed to it at the time, even though his deal was through Columbia, and then John Legend, same thing. And then I was wondering what was going to happen with the remix, and then it turned out they didn't want to spend any more marketing dollars on that single. The single was "Used to Love You." That's the first record. The original version Kanye produced, it has a lot of pianos. They had a video in the church and all that.
right.
And they said they didn't want to spend any more marketing dollars on that single, so they decided to put the budget into Ordinary People. So that's why you never really heard the remix. They leaked it to DJs overseas, but it never got any further than that. You know what I'm
I'm
saying?
sorry to hear
So
that, brother, but I
no,
love
no, no, it's cool.
Ordinary
I'm not even
People.
mad. I respect it. I understand the
I love
business
Ordinary
side,
People. I ain't gonna lie, I'm not the biggest John Legend
but
fan these days, but
yeah, but Ordinary
that's
People
neither here nor
became
there. Yeah, no, I love
was
Ordinary
the hit
People.
that took him to the next level of his career and gave him the household name he has now. So I respect it.
Let me ask you something out of curiosity, and we can be very political about this. If you had a friend or boss or somebody of that nature, and they decided that they wanted to support Trump, would you have said something to him publicly?
Uh,
Because me personally, I wouldn't have, I wouldn't comment on something like that amongst people that are.
I probably wouldn't either, to be honest. I try
Not
to
to knock
avoid.
anybody who does. Everybody makes their own
Yeah,
decisions.
I
I'm
try to
just
avoid
curious.
political conversations because I can get real passionate about that, and I probably end up in trouble like how you get in trouble. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to speaking on political matters in a public arena, you know.
Do you like these youngins? And I hate to be that old man on the porch, though, but they seem like they disqualify even like being in someone's presence for certain political beliefs. And I ain't in favor of like like mandatory minimums or redlining and all that fuck shit. But like,
right,
just because automatically somebody's a anything, I'd at least give them a little bit of a chance. Well, not at anything. There's a Klan member, they can kick rocks or some shit. But
right.
I don't know. It seemed like I wouldn't have just automatically left the room because there was a Republican in it back in the day.
Right. It's weird because there's so many points of view between the political parties, and I think over the years as I've gotten older, my overall view has evolved. Let's just say,
Definitely.
you know what I'm saying? So when it comes to voting and my perspective on any level of political office, it can go from mayor to governor to councilman and Congress, Senate, all the way up to the president. I do monitor periodically who's who in these positions, and I could tell where it's going to go just based on who got voted in.
I mean, I can take that, and I mean, there's got to be some level of reality to that shit because I mean, it matters somewhat. But like you personally, I can point to what you've done, and an author, they have a body of work, a podcast, whatever. But with politicians, to me, like other than talking and campaigning, there's very few things that you can point to that they've done.
Done exactly.
And they're often like negative ass shit, like pass laws that make me go to prison for a long ass time because I had some fucking weed.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see how much more that changes now that weed is legal in New York. Because there's people who are still suffering from cases beforehand that probably needed some type of appeal now, but that's a whole other animal right there.
I mean, the shit's confusing to me because, like,
yeah, it is.
I grew up on some like Republicans are bad and they want to put everybody in prison shit, and then I find out that the motherfucker that's supposedly gonna get rid of the racist President Trump is a motherfucker who wrote the crime bill that I personally went to prison for. That if it wasn't for that bill, I would have had a fucking misdemeanor, and I ended up doing years in plural because of that shit.
That's crazy.
And then this motherfucker's vice president is the first black lady, which is an accomplishment. But then she's a damn prosecutor who done lied and withheld evidence to keep somebody, to get somebody executed on death row. But I'm supposed to believe that that's progress. Like that whole
exactly,
shit
and that they're in our best interest, which is questionable, to be honest. Some people have their opinion about the Biden administration as it is. The only thing I paid attention to is his age and his health, and I'll just leave it at that. That's the only thing I pay attention to these days.
I mean, I feel like I don't know enough about politics, but I ain't never trust motherfuckers that put me in prison, and I ain't never really trust prosecutors too much, and it's just hard for me to believe that those motherfuckers are going to be my salvation.
I agree. I definitely agree.
But I mean, I guess that's neither here nor there. To be real with you, I was just testing that because I didn't know if I was tripping feeling that way because like
nah, you're not wrong.
Because if you look at people talking about that shit, it's like either you love the shit or you hate the shit. There ain't no like I just don't understand the shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't know. I guess everybody got to have
an
opinion.
But you're blessed to be here, be in a position that you can, have a platform to voice your position on things, whether it be music or otherwise. You know what I mean?
Word. And then, I just feel like if you try to do good in the world around you, that's pretty much the best you can do.
That's the best you could do. You're right.
Word.
Best you could do.
So let's finish this with this. What's the next release they can be looking forward to? Because I mean, you got your hand in what, like 100
I gotta hit my hand
right now.
Yeah, I mean, of course, look out for Monie Love's album next year. We have a working title, but I'm not gonna voice it here. It's yet to be determined in the new year. My guy Dre Banks that you heard about, he supported the Trina record that came out, did really well in the past year. He just dropped a new record literally since this past Friday, the 10th. It's called Off the Chain. I'll get it to you. It's called Off the Chain. It's doing really well. It's already streaming past 1 million on Spotify. Of course, you know, the Monie single, Divine, featuring Scott Zoo and Molly Tuff is out. Of course, AZ's album, Do It Die 2 is out. It's doing really well. It debuted at #2 on iTunes the week of its release in the top 10. You know what I'm saying? Right up there with Kanye and everybody, you know. So I'm really happy for him, man.
Are you
Long time
are you the
coming.
executive producer on that?
No, I'm not the executive producer of A's album. I kind of consulted him a lot on that, you know, but you know,
Because
I didn't really play the
I got a
executive
question,
producer
bro.
role.
I missed out on the vinyl release. That shit sold out. Is it gonna get reissued?
Yeah, that vinyl really sold out, but I can find out from his manager if they're going to reissue it. I know another way you can find out is go to his website, quietmoneydirect.com, because he does these little exclusive, little curated launches that he uses his website as a platform for his real fans to check. Because he did a CD version of the album, then he did a limited version of the vinyl of the album, and they both sold out. You
I
know what I
know,
mean?
man. I didn't get it in time. I'm talking about
Yeah, yeah.
it wasn't. It was already gone that motherfucking afternoon.
He has a documentary coming out that I'm in that you'll see. He has a champagne brand that he's about to launch called Sosa, and you know, he's working. I'm really happy for him, man. The next single off the album is called Never Enough. I produced that record. It's featuring Rick Ross, which is actually good timing because Ross just dropped a really dope album. So I guess they just try to, you know, figure out the schedule to shoot the visuals and have that out soon.
That
Yeah, and
jump
then
go hard.
and I know you asked about Jay Slake because you interviewed her before. I actually had a conversation with her. She's going to be dropping her a body of work early next year in January. I produced about 4 or 5 of those, and then the rest is some new producers she's working with out of the Midwest who produce for like Cash Dog.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's working. She's working. You know, hopefully I didn't miss anything because you know,
Crossroads.
I got my. Oh yeah, Crossroads. Shout to Soup. Thank you for reminding me. Actually, we got another EP that we're gonna put out probably by early summer, late spring, early summer next year. It's called Hiatus. It's called Hiatus. Um, we have some previously unreleased material and some new music we're gonna do. We got a song from the dude from Little Brother, Fonte from Little Brother.
Yeah, definitely.
He's
I know
gonna be on
Fonte.
a record. Um, yeah,
Yo,
but
Fonte
definitely.
got a solo. I think it's a Gangsta Grills. It's either a Gangsta Grill, but he got a solo mixtape that is fucking flames, and I know it's on that Piff.
I want to check that out. Thank you for telling me. I want to check that out. But yeah, shout out to Fonte. We got this record that he did for us. Fire. His verse is retarded. You know what I'm saying?
That's what's up. Well,
Yeah.
shit. What's your socials?
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, one last mention. I'm gonna do an NFT release on my instrumental album. Remember Throwback City that I put out a couple years back? I'm gonna do a revised version of that for next year as an NFT, like a digital, you know, crypto release. I'm working on a partnership to put that out with some bonus material, some curated artwork and whatnot. And
So can you do
yeah,
like
I'm
Taylor
excited about
Swift and
that.
like redo like that, like one of your big songs?
That's a good question. I should do some remixes too, but I was just gonna focus on the music, like the beats, because sometimes I just like to drive and listen to beats. But
Well,
I'm weird
I meant
like
it's
that.
like the NFT. Like imagine if you could redo the Grammy jump, just the instrumental.
But then the thing is, I'd have to clear that.
That's what I mean. If you did that redoing and shit, like I think like how Taylor Swift did it, and something new.
Mhm. Oh, okay. Do they have to clear the composers though? The composer rights, even if you
It,
change it
it,
up?
it's something to do with time limits in the contract, so it would be
Ah,
specific to your situation.
right, right. Good point. All right, that's what's up. But yeah, man, thanks for having me, man. Y'all can find me online, specifically on Instagram, Baby Paul BPZ. I'm not on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, none of those. You know, I just stuck with Instagram because I'd be too busy.
Yeah,
That's the one platform I can keep up it on my phone. Other than that, I don't got the time.
I can dig it, brother. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Well, shit. Thanks for your time, man.
Appreciate you, man. Always a blessing, man.
No doubt, bro.
You know what I'm
I'll check
saying?
in with you down the road and make sure you send that Dre Banks record. I'll get it right
Oh
up.
yeah, I got you. I'm gonna tap in with you within the week and send you a couple new records.
All right, that's a bet, man.
All
Appreciate you.
right.
Peace.
Peace.